Good morning. I now call the February 20, 2020 Administrative Briefing and Work Session of the Marion County School Board to order at 9:00 a.m. Please silence your electronic devices to avoid disturbing others. I now ask the School Board Attorney to explain the rules for this board meeting.
This work session is a public meeting as defined in Florida Sunshine Laws. The board is dedicated to full transparency in its meeting and its work. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board has adopted uniform meeting procedures, including the right for citizens to participate. The board will allow public comment regarding any work session item listed on today's agenda at the appropriate time. Speakers must fill out a request form and hand it to the school board secretary. After the board and superintendent have completed their discussions on a particular agenda item, the secretary will call speaker's name in the order received. At the podium, speakers are asked to state their full name and address and to spell their last name. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. As required by the Sunshine Law, the board must maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum throughout this meeting. Speakers may criticize subject matter and decisions in a respectful manner, but not people. Finally, speakers must be very careful not to violate the privacy rights of others, especially students and their family members, by mentioning their names or other identifying information. Thank you.
For the sake of time, because we have a lengthy day, if you are on the agenda to do something, if you can shorten it as quick as you can. We want to make sure we get through everything, but we want to make sure that we're being wise stewards of the time that we have today, because it's a lengthy day. We'll now begin the work session with the superintendent's administrative briefing.
Thank you very much. A reminder to everybody that tonight is our annual spelling bee for our middle school students, and these are our public school students as well as our private school students who have been invited to participate in this spelling bee. The winners from tonight will advance to Orlando, and then from there they would go to the Nationals in Washington, D.C. for the Scripps Spelling Bee. So we're very excited about that. It's always an interesting evening, and we are so excited that Chancellor Oliva from the Department of Education will be our word caller tonight. And also our youth fair has started, and Reverend Chair, don't forget, 8 a.m. Saturday, the sheep are there, the sheep that you met.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so the sheep show. But so many events happening, so please step out and support them. And even if you can just stop in for just a moment and walk around and say hi to the kids, that's always a wonderful thing to do. They work so hard and just so impressed with their professionalism always. I have something that I'm bringing to the attention of Attorney Green. She and I have chatted. On our website, it lists under the board, it lists the schools that are assigned to each of you. Well, Wesley Wilcox has different areas assigned to each of you. So we have a handout, and Ms. Green's going to look into that for us. I'm going to pass this across you, ma'am. Thank you very much for doing that. And then we had a glitch with board docs. Again, so Ms. Lopez is going to look into that, but she needs to explain what happened with the, explain. So.
So the first sheet you have there, that was completed, and that is what we saw at the agenda review on Thursday. So it was completed and done, okay? It was still in an incomplete phase because we were still waiting for something, but that was what the wording was and so forth. The next page is what you'll see, what happened when I published. And as you can tell, when I published, a lot of the stuff did not move over. Action and rationale, results, methodology and time frame, that did not move over.
Because
So-
we had moved this item from consent to discussion.
So we don't know if that was the glitch when we moved it, something happened. Therefore, we are on the call with board docs to find out what happened. Once we get an explanation, I will send that all to you, so you can see that. And then the last sheet you have is the best practice form that was completed by Ms. Fox, Mr. Knight's secretary. That is what will be in there. I have not done that as I wanted you all to see it first, so you could see what will be going in there. So once I get that letter from board docs and an explanation, I will forward that to you so that you all can see the explanation from board docs.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. School staffing plan 2 of 3, Ms. Barbara Dobbins.
Good morning. Good morning, Reverend Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Madam Board Members, Madam Superintendent Attorney Green, and Mrs. Martinez Lopez. This is our second meeting in regards to the summer school staffing plan and the school staffing plan. And before I get started, the school staffing plan that was attached to board docs originally, that was published yesterday, has been updated. So the one currently posted this morning is slightly different than the original one posted. I'm going to talk about the school staffing plan first. You should have on your seat one that says in the upper left-hand corner, Board Proposed 2020. This is the latest, greatest school staffing plan. It varies very slightly from the one we discussed on last work session. Those changes are because in our 100-page Excel document, the formula for Vanguard High School allocation sheet did not upload to the summary. So there are minor changes under basic. None of the subtotals under basic change, so it's still 13. Under alternative programs, it didn't change. The 2 is still there. However, our virtual school upload didn't complete correctly either. So there was some internal changes. The 30 was a 28, but it still was a change of 2. Under ESE, there were minor upload changes, such as a self-contained didn't report on Vanguard High School that adjusted the numbers but did not adjust the subtotal. In enrichment, there was a weird glitch. I guess it's a glitch day. For some reason on the original sheet, if you look at that, driver's ed reported 36 under elementary. As you know, our elementary students don't drive, so there shouldn't have been a 36 there. And also ESOL reported 56. Those numbers should not have been there. They did not impact the subtotal. And then in support, things like the Vanguard High School, again, Vanguard didn't upload, so their athletic trainer didn't upload correctly. And then administrative, there was no changes. If you turn to page 3, again, there were some updates from Vanguard and from custodial. For example, the custodian from Vanguard did not upload correctly, so that was a slight change. Also, we needed to adjust the kindergarten pairs. They didn't upload with the addition, so that's been corrected, and I assure you there's one kindergarten pair for every assigned kindergarten unit, and that will continue. And then the subtotals changed on there with the 44, however, very minimal, and it was those pairs that didn't upload. So other than those things, nothing else has changed on the school staffing plan, and nothing has changed on the summer school staffing plan. So this is our part 2 for me to take any questions if you have, as we are proposing on Tuesday for board approval. And of course, I'm always available if the questions arise after this work session, and also the directors of the departments that have changes are also available.
Ms. Dobbins, I do have a question. Would you be so kind to just briefly describe for me the process that got us to these numbers?
Absolutely. So it starts with projections. So when Stephen Ayers does the instructional calendars, he then moves on to looking at projections from next year. He sends over to my office the projections. We put the projections in, and when I mean projections, how many, if we're looking at Anthony, how many kindergarten students are they projected to have first, second, third? Then we apply the class size formula to that, and that gives us how many teachers they have per grade level. I then meet with the 3 area directors. They look at that. They then meet with the principal, and they go over what their cuts may be. Are there some anomalies that we're not seeing? Are the projections, again, correct? We are projecting, I know Stephen does an incredible job of looking at growth in the community and things like that. We're not always right with projections, and that's where we get into that 10-day count for the fluidness of it. So after the area directors meet with the principals, they then submit to me either validation of what is being projected or tweaks and changes to that. From there, I put it in this sheet, which spits out the summary sheets you see before you.
Okay. And is there a standard process across all schools for principals to get input from teachers as to what they feel their needs?
So I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that. I believe that would be the area directors, and I know they're in Tallahassee, I believe, today. So I can get you that answer, but I wouldn't want to speak for them.
Okay, because I know in years past, teachers would submit dream sheets, so to speak, of what they felt their needs really would be to be able to serve the kids most effectively. And I wasn't sure if that was a school-by-school thing, or if there was a more standardized type process to make sure that the folks in the classroom, are able to filter up their needs.
You mean like a wish list of what grade they want to teach? Or,
Not necessarily, just numbers of students, things that went right,
oh, okay.
things that they might need in terms of support, be it more para support, be it a few less kids because of the dynamics of students, anything that would give them a voice.
And I know some teachers say that they get their unfair number of discipline issues because they're, quote, a good teacher. And so I'd like to see those spread out so that our good teachers don't burn out, because they do.
I'll convey
The better teacher they are, the more difficult students sometimes they get.
I'll convey that to the area directors. I know once they get their staffing plan, of course, they're spending the summer assigning their students, and that varies across the board. How I did it as a principal might not be how Ms. Beck did it as a principal, and so forth.
Right,
Well,
but
I-
if they hear our concerns.
Yes,
then-
It just kind of puzzled me just there. You said that people are getting students based on
They're a good teacher.
how difficult, so you're telling me they're having a draft for
They're good
the,
teacher.
for the,
good teacher.
for the
They
kids?
can handle more, problems. Haven't y'all heard that before? That the good teachers get the most of those numbers and they're burning out?
That's a practice that shouldn't be happening
No,
in the school system.
it's
That's the
going on.
leadership, that's the principal,
That's
though.
a
That's
leadership.
not.
Okay.
That's
I-
not
I
our,
mean,
that's
it's
not
a
us.
concern, but I understand, and I think, or what
But
Ms.
that's
Thomas
why I said, put the word out. This is a
Yeah.
concern. That we're coming from here.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Review of the charter school renewal application, Mr. Harris.
Good morning, Pastor Coach,
Good morning.
Pastor Chair, Madam Co-Chair, board members, Ms. Martinez Lopez, Attorney Green. I'm here today just to give you an update on, we have two charter school things that are working its way through the system right now. The first one is the Marion Charter renewal. That will be voted on by you as to accept that application at the next board meeting. We have the contract that we're working with right now. With them, everything is going smoothly, so as soon as that board meeting occurs, that contract will be formally presented to Marion Charter, and then we'll get it signed, and then they are good to go. And so that's that. The other, that you have the copy of the new charter school that did apply to go in, that process is now being reviewed. They will be here at the March 5th work session to do a presentation to you. At that point, you will have the ability to ask questions to them about that, as well as you will receive the recommendation from the district office about the review of the thing, the application that we did, that they submitted, and then y'all will have a couple weeks to review it then, and then the formal vote will happen in April, and then we'll start a contract with them. And so those are the two charter school things we have going on. And I just wanted to update you, last night we did have our community meeting at College Park Elementary School for the proposed zoning change. We had a few families that did show up. They had some quality questions that they asked. They were, a lot of them were excited because of the closeness of the school and things like that. So that went well. And so our next thing is the public hearing and the vote on that. So,
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question about that. When will we know actually how many families are going to choose to go back to their,
That's going to be hard to say. We won't know till August, till the families go to show up. What they were instructed last night was that their new school would be College Park Elementary School. It would be done on the computer, and then transportation would work with them this summer to establish the new routes. We'll know by the beginning of the summer based upon movement, because they'll do, if they don't want to go to that school, they'll do an out-of-area request, and we'll go there. We just have to assume that they'll go, and so.
And I know we have more to talk about as far as the details of that are concerned. One thing that came to my mind is for kids that are upcoming, rising fifth graders and have been at Evergreen all this time.
Yeah, I did explain to them last night that if they were at Evergreen and they wanted to stay, continue to Evergreen, they could stay at Evergreen. The issue would be the parents would be responsible for the transportation. The transportation would be provided from that area to College Park. But if they wanted to stay, and we made that clear, that.
Do they have a
The good thing is their
deadline?
friends will be going with them, so.
Right.
Do they have a deadline that they need to submit that out-of-area request?
There's really no deadline, just as, because we have controlled open enrollment, and it's a rolling controlled open enrollment, and as long as the school has capacity, we do the transfers.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And remind me again, how many kids were this is affecting?
There are 163 school-age kids in that zone. There's currently 92, as of last count, last week, that are currently attending Evergreen that would transfer to College Park.
I need to, thank you.
And what is the spread of those kids?
I don't have that in front of me. I did email that out to the principals and the area directors, but it's a pretty even breakdown amongst the grade levels. So I did email that to the area directors as they're doing the staffing plans. That's not reflected in the current staffing plans. It's not official yet. But then once we do move that, then we'll have to adjust some staffing plans of that nature.
Any more? Any public comment? Thank you, Ms. Harris. Mr. Knight, construction projects update.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr.
Morning.
Mayor, Mrs. Martinez Lopez, Mrs. Green. Here to give an update on construction and design projects throughout the district. Normally, I go through and hit the highlights of every project. In the interest of time, I'd suggest that I could also, instead of that format, give you a summary of how many projects are in design, how many are in construction, and then there are 3 in particular that I'd like to talk about with the board because it involves me coming back for additional board approvals. So if that's okay, because so many of the projects are, well, they're still in construction and the roof is now 60% instead of 20%. But in the interest of time, I'd be willing to give you groupings of things. And then obviously you can always ask questions now or at a later date if need be. With that being said, we have about 18 projects on the list today to talk about or to share with you. There are 4 in design. They are Bellevue Santos Elementary getting an air handler replacement, Evergreen Elementary getting an air conditioning replacement. This is phase 3 of that project, and then both cafeterias, one at North Marion High School and one at Osceola Middle School. There are 6 more in construction. They involve generator installation at Bellevue High and Bellevue Middle, which if not this Friday, then by next Friday, we should have the Department of Environmental permit, and then those projects will be done. They'll be turned on. The other projects in construction are district-wide storage, Dunella Middle School covered walkways, which we're doing in phases because it's taking quite a bit to get the actual covered walkway here. That'll be done in the summer. Air conditioning replacement at our compound in technical services and risk management. And then finally, the 2 remaining chiller replacements at Forest High School, which will both be done this summer. Chiller 1 was replaced over the break. The other 2 will be replaced in the summer. The ones on hold, there are 3 on hold, mostly due to funding. One of them is central warehouse roof replacement because of the possibility that we might part ways with that particular facility. The other 2 are risk management remodeling of the back bay, simply because the money was needed elsewhere in the school district, so we put that project on a shelf. And finally, Oakcrest Elementary's chiller upgrades were also put on hold because A, they're still fairly new, and B, it was really a modification to add additional capacity. There's not really an issue with the chillers, and it was sort of closer to a want than a need, so that project was put on hold so we could use that funding, excuse me, at other schools. There are 4 more projects in procurement or pricing, and those projects are the district-wide fencing. The update there is that we are doing the drawings in-house, and this is based on the most recent grant, and that grant for security fencing is tied directly to a district's safety and security assessment. And so it's not so much, well, let's pick the oldest schools or the biggest schools. It's based on your assessment. And the 4 schools in this particular funding operation are College Park Elementary, which is in pricing phase, East Marion Elementary, which is in design, and the other two, Spar Elementary and Stanton Wearsdale, we will be getting to design by sometime in mid-spring, once we get pricing for the first two schools accomplished.
What was the fourth one?
I'm sorry?
You said
The four
College Park?
schools? The
East
four
Marion?
schools are College Park Elementary, East Marion Elementary, Spar Elementary, and Stanton Wearsdale Elementary. Those are the top four, if you will, according to the security assessment. And obviously, the next batch of money will probably include the next grouping. So the other projects that are in procurement phase are Dunellen High School air handler replacement. We're hoping to bring a guaranteed maximum price to the board by March so that we can get ready. You may recall the board has already approved procurement twice for the big equipment, and the next batch of pricing will be mostly labor and some of the smaller equipment, so we can do that project starting in April or May. And then the last project that's in procurement is the cooling tower replacement at Harborview. That one is complete in design, and we're out for pricing as we speak, and should be getting those numbers back any day. And then finally, there is one project that's a special study, and that is at Bellevue Middle School. The State of Florida Division of Emergency Management gave us a grant to look at the feasibility of adding additional structural enhancements to the top part of the gym. When that gym was built, it was built so high with block walls, and there's a space above it between the roof and the block walls, which is about 12 feet, and that is covered with a steel skin on the outside with stucco, and then on the inside just with steel beams every so many feet. And it does not meet any current wind load rating, so what we're trying to do is see if we can get an architect or an engineer that can come up with a plan that would allow us economically to add additional enhancements to that area. If so, the state would be looking to give us the funds to do the work, and then they would be able to utilize that as additional shelter space. The hard part is because those buildings are several decades old, if you harden and enhance one area, makes the walls weaker, excuse me, and the roof weaker, so we have to go back and see, well, would we have a situation where stand behind the door because it's the strongest part of the building, or stand behind that top part? So we're in process now of doing a feasibility study as to whether or not we can do it, and what the state said is, it's possible you can't, then we'll give you the money to do something else with it. So it's not like we're going to necessarily lose any sort of funding, but right now they've given us some dollars that if we can prove the feasibility, we should be able to do additional enhancements at that. And we're just too early on to know whether we can do it or not. There are three projects in particular I'd like to cover in a little more depth. The first is North Marion High School's cafeteria. And the reason why I want to cover that in a little more depth is twofold. First, we are in design. It takes a while to design. We got back on track. We are continuing with design on that project, but probably by May, I will need to come before the board with a Phase 3 construction presentation. For those of you that haven't been one, I think the last time we did a Phase 3 for the board was Legacy Elementary School, and that was 5 years ago it opened, so that would have been almost 6 years ago. So Mrs. Stacy might be the only one that might recall that, or perhaps Mrs. King. But what's involved in that is, per statute, in order for a project to advance into construction, if it involves an addition or a major renovation or a remodeling of a space, the board is required to approve what's called Phase 3 drawings. And what that means is, at construction set, I'm not going to bring you details of the mechanical and the door frames and what have you, but we'll be presenting a site plan, a floor plan, and the elevations for the building for the board to see what's proposed. Those main documents will be available in my building for the board to come anytime they want to, but if I took you through every sheet, we'd probably be here 2 solid days. And so the idea is that the board would approve the concept for construction. It'll come to you before the board in a regularly scheduled board meeting after the presentation piece, and I'll be doing that for North Marion High School's cafeteria, and then again for Osceola Middle's cafeteria. May is a little ways off. I don't know if it's too early to start thinking about dates that I can come back to the board. I think that by April, I'll be in position to come to the board for Osceola Middle School, same thing. It'll be a presentation. We'll have a design team here. Once the board hears the presentation, we'll be asking the board to approve the Phase 3 concept at a regularly scheduled board meeting. Then eventually the board will get the pricing to approve as well. And so I anticipate being ready by April for the one at Osceola Middle. That's why I wanted to bring both those up. I can certainly coordinate with Ms. Martinez Lopez on board scheduling and what might be happening on what date. That way you don't have to, spend half an hour trying to coordinate calendars, so. So those two projects, that's the update there I wanted to talk about. The last one is that it involves generators. When the board got a grant from the state to put generators in as part of this Restart grant, there were 3 schools in the picture: Bellevue High School, Bellevue Middle School, and Westport High School. Bellevue High and Bellevue Middle are literally a week and a half away from getting final Department of Environmental Protection permitting so that we can turn those on. The one at Westport there's not enough grant funding to fire it up, and it's relatively small compared to the existing generator that's there. And so what we would have is a scenario where we have 2 generators. They'd both come on, the big one would overpower the small one, and it would have to automatically shut off because you'll backfeed power through the system, and you could start a fire at either generator. Well, at the time, the state was adamant that, we got to use the money on the schools that were affected by the storm. That was about a couple of years ago, so now conditions have changed. We've recently gone through an updating of our numbers in terms of how many folks we can house in our schools, and the state is aware of that. In light of that, the state has notified us that we can move that generator at Westport High School to another location of need in Marion County. A suggestion to the board is we are going to be building a brand-new cafeteria at North Marion High School. North Marion Middle School's cafeteria is already a hardened shelter. We could move that generator to North Marion High School. We would have the funds in the grant to install it, and it would be wired when we build the cafeteria so that when the cafeteria comes online, the entire cafeteria, including the cooling, would be available for temporary power if it was needed. We were going to put a very small generator there anyway to protect the cooler freezer. We try to do this anytime we build a standalone cafeteria because of the problem of trying to move food if we lose power just for somebody hitting a power pole down the street. So if the board was agreeable to that, I could bring to you a board request item in a regularly scheduled board meeting where the board would be approving relocating the generator from Westport High to North Marion High. It will not affect the big generator at Westport High School. That stays in operation, but it would give us a generator that we could actually use somewhere, and it would save us the cost of having to buy a generator through the cafeteria project. And if that project or that building never becomes a shelter, it'll still be protected in case of a power loss for other reasons. So I wanted to bring that up to the board's attention. And
I have one question.
Sure.
Where are we with Liberty Middle and Hammett Bowen being, I thought we had talked about those 2 schools because they were close by, one of them being a special needs shelter and the other.
Last week for
Liberty,
generator.
yes.
Yeah.
The board approved very
Right.
recently, I believe it was the last board meeting,
So that
purchase-
generator can't go there?
the large generator at Liberty, you mean?
Yes, there's already a generator at Liberty.
There's already a generator at Liberty Middle School. It controls the gym, it controls lights, air handlers, which is just the fan boxes, and outlets in the gymnasium and the cafeteria predominantly, and I believe also the media center. The first front of that school was built as a shelter. What it does not include is power for the rest of the school or the big chill water plant. This new generator that we have ordered, that the board approved,
Right.
will run the entire school.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that we were taking care of with those 2 schools by what we voted on.
Yes, now Hammett Bowen was built as a shelter years ago, and it still is. The new generator that the board just approved will service Liberty Middle School in its
Special
entirety.
needs.
Yes, and we were updating the numbers for the powers that be so that when the manual comes out and you see the numbers, it will reflect special needs at Liberty instead of general population.
My question is have you had conversations and communication with the director of the EOC to make sure that's a good fit for that school? So, you know.
Talking about Westport, we're going to
No, I'm
North
talking
Marion?
about moving that generator to North Marion High.
Yes, and
So they're-
they were pretty excited about the possibility of down the road, especially if the board were to get additional grants from the state to harden windows and do things at the school. They liked the idea of having a second option in the north end of the county. There would actually be 3 because Fort McCoy School has a wing, but as far as close proximity, you'd have North Marion Middle School's cafeteria and now North Marion High School's cafeteria that would both be powered with cooling lights, electricity in the kitchen to cook, and they would both be utilized as a shelter. I don't know off the top of my head how many spaces that was, but I did have conversation with them, and they were very receptive to it and said that if there was anything on their end they could do, and I said, well, just help us find money is always the
right.
key concern we have. But certainly they were very agreeable to that move, and I said, well, then I'll bring it up to the board's attention and check the board's.
How does that affect the exemption letter and all that stuff that they need for the cafeteria?
Well, it shouldn't affect the exemption later at all. If anything, it'll help enhance that because that's one box you check. You know, the hope would be that we put a plug in
Right.
or an outlet in, which this generator is large enough that you really have to hardwire it. And what's better than an outlet, an actual generator
Hardwired.
that would be ready to go as soon as the cafeteria is open.
I have a question.
So
Yes.
that'll be done. Moving it gives us time because we're still in the construction design phase and all of that.
Yeah, if the board approves it, we'd have it moved, if not by the end of spring break, by the end of March. We would have a pad down.
Oh.
The generator is here in our possession already, then
Already.
we will crane it into place, run the conduits to it, and keep it maintained until the cafeteria is built. We have to pass right past that location to wire the new cafeteria, because all the main switch gear is feet behind where we want to put the generator. So we'd have to, it would cost us pennies to connect that generator to the cafeteria, which is why it's such a good idea. And we could do it probably for the funding we have in the grant, and that would free up almost $94,000 in capital that either could be used on that cafeteria or could be used somewhere else.
Okay, are you saying that, the GC, when he did his estimate, you said that we always include a generator when we're doing kitchen remodels? Has that been included in the bid? So how much, we'll be getting a $90,000 credit, are you saying?
Now, what the 94,000 that I'll tell you about two things. First, when we got the grant and we assessed what the costs were, it became pretty clear that we're not going to be able to buy a generator for all three schools, pay for the design, pay for all the installation and the rewiring. The challenge at Westport is because the whole school is run by a generator, we actually have to get into the electrical grid and pull circuits out to tie it to the one the smaller one. And there's a cost there because that school is not designed to separate circuits in the way we would have to. So at North Marion High School, what we were going to look at is a small generator that would power just a cooler freezer. And so we might save $40,000, $50,000 in the bids when we do that. Where the $94,000 comes into play is that into this fiscal year, I budgeted an additional $100,000 for generator use just because if we only rely on the grants, we don't want to be in a situation which we were headed for at Westport. Well, you get it on site, but you can't even use it because you got to separate all the electric at the existing school that's 20 years old just to make the generator run. In this case, by moving it, that frees up that extra money I put in the budget and capital to be used wherever the board needs it, or it could be transferred to North Marion High School for whatever is needed there to go towards that project.
And it'll give us a deduct from the contractor on the school construction.
Yeah, what'll happen is that line item for a generator will be non-existent. It'll be $0 because, I mean, they're literally feet from the generator when they have to run the main power, and the only difference we would have to do is we run to a transfer switch first before we run into the electric panel, and that's almost immeasurable as far as cost because it's a matter of a couple of hours on connection.
That's all I got.
Yep. Okay, well, with that being said, I will bring that to the board for approval, and we'll move onward with that. And that concludes what I've got for you all this morning, and obviously, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Everybody good with that?
Okay, thank you very much.
Any public comment? Being none. Operations Manual Committee. Who's that? The Operations Manual
No,
Committee?
that's us, that's on there, that's for the,
Where this is part of the rulemaking, we'll have to.
right, so you know how we have to have a work session for the rulemaking for the committee for the operation. So this is our official work session, I guess. So I'm not really sure, I've handed that handout a few times. I don't know if you guys have any questions or concerns. Can we move ahead? Okay, so we're official now, or?
Make sure there's no public comment on it.
Right. Any public comment on the Operations Manual Committee from that? Okay. Pretty good.
Easy peasy.
Wow.
Board concerns. Let's start down here. Attorney Green.
Thank you. I have a few shade committees to announce. May I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I request a shade meeting on behalf of Attorney Mark Lovett so that he can discuss the litigation in regard to case 5D 19-2557, Marshall Petaway, appellant versus the School Board of Marion County, Appalachia. The individuals that will be present for this shade meeting are Mark Lovett, Esquire, with Alan Norton and Blue. This meeting will start at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as may be heard, and will take approximately 30 minutes. Present will be myself, M. Suzanne Green, interim school board attorney, Eric Cummings, board chair, Nancy Thrower, vice chair, Nancy Stacy, Elizabeth McCall, Kelly King, and Dr. Heidi Mayer. This is going to follow the work session on March 5th.
Can we add J.C. Oliver to that?
Sure. We'll announce J.C. Oliver as well.
Thank you.
I recommend the board hold an attorney-client session pursuant to section 286.011, parentheses 8, Florida statutes to discuss pending litigation. If there are no objection, I will instruct our attorney to schedule an attorney-client session to be held following the March 5th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session starting at approximately 11 o'clock a.m. Ms. Green.
Thank you. I would also request another shade meeting following the March 5th, 2020 work session on behalf of attorney Nathan Pollich, so he can discuss litigation and court-ordered mediation regarding case 519 CV 00036 JSM-PRL, Alicia Townsend, plaintiff versus the School Board of Marion County, Florida, defendant. The individuals that will be present for this shade meeting are Nathan Pollich, Esquire, with Gray Robinson. This meeting will start at 11:30 a.m. or as soon thereafter as may be heard, and should take approximately 30 minutes. Also present will be myself, Suzanne Green, interim school board attorney, Eric Cummings, board chair, Nancy Thrower, vice chair, Nancy Stacy, Elizabeth McCall, Kelly King, and Dr. Mayer.
No other person. I recommend the board hold an attorney-client session pursuant to section 286.0018 Florida statutes to discuss pending litigation. If there are no objections, I will instruct our attorney to schedule an attorney-client session to be held following the March 5th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session starting at approximately 11:30 a.m. Attorney Green.
Thank you. I also request a shade meeting on behalf of attorney Nathan Pollich so he can discuss litigation, court order mediation in regard to case 519 CV 00019 JSM-PRL, Fredna Wilkerson, plaintiff versus the School Board of Marion County, Florida, defendant. The individuals that will be present for this shade meeting are Nathan Pollich, Esquire, with Gray Robinson. This meeting will start at 12:15 p.m. or as soon thereafter as may be heard, and should take approximately 30 minutes. M. Suzanne Green, interim school board attorney, Eric Cummings, board chair, Nancy Thrower, vice chair, Nancy Stacy, Elizabeth McCall, Kelly King, and Dr. Heidi Mayer.
I recommend the board hold an attorney-client session pursuant to section 286.0118 Florida statutes to discuss pending litigation. If there are no objections, I will instruct our attorney to schedule the attorney-client session to be held following the March 5th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session starting at approximately 12:15 p.m. Attorney Green.
And finally, I request a shade meeting on behalf of attorney Nathan Pollich so he can discuss litigation, court order mediation in regard to case 2019 CA 1319 Nicole Thornton, plaintiff versus the School Board of Marion County, Florida, defendant. The individuals that will be present for this shade meeting are Nathan Pollich, Esquire, with Gray Robertson. This meeting will start at 12:45 p.m. or as soon thereafter and will take approximately 30 minutes. Eric Cummings, board chair, Nancy Thrower, vice chair, Nancy Stacy, Elizabeth McCall, Kelly King, and Dr. Heidi Mayer.
I recommend this board hold an attorney-client session pursuant to section 286.0118 Florida statutes to discuss pending litigations. If there are no objections, I will instruct our attorney to schedule the attorney-client session to be held following the March 5th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session starting at approximately 12:45 p.m.
You won't have an attorney there, though?
Mr. Pollux will be there.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Martinez,
I'm good. Thank you.
Dr. Mayor,
We're good.
Stacy? Ms. McCall?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, good news. Mark Vianello, you know, the career planning guide is getting a lot of traction. First of all, he's been asked by the Florida School Board Association to present that guide at the June conference. But also, it's not just getting statewide recognition. Mark emailed me yesterday, and let me just read it. Please see highlighted sections below for some good news. Maggie Miller is our state's lead trainer for My Career Shines and a huge fan of Marion's career planning guide. The work we're doing locally is now getting attention outside the state as well. So they are, and she says, would you believe your planning guide is so loved now Alabama school districts are admiring your work? I shared the Google Drive with my colleague who is the Alabama trainer, and her districts are thinking about creating plans too. So it's pretty remarkable. The other thing I needed to bring up, I've had a call from the chairman of the county commission. They are not in favor or happy at all about our moving in any direction towards a sales tax. I'm not in favor of that at this time. So they, even if we come before them, they're saying no to us to put it on the ballot. They're asking for a renewal of theirs. They were very supportive of our referendum. So I am just saying at this time, I think we just need to, because of the articles in the banner, it's become a buzz. I've told them we're not even close to making any kind of a decision on that. But I did tell them that I would bring it up today. And in my opinion, I think we need to just put this way, way, way on the back burner. It is absolutely not even the time to discuss it or bring it up. So I share that for open discussion.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just threw it out there as something that you have an option for in the years to come. You can also, I don't know that the county commission can even turn down the school board legally. I think we go to them, it's more of a formality, but I'm not sure about that, to get things on the ballot. But there are also different ways that you can do it. You can do it at a primary, you can do it at a general. And so in the years to come when I'm not here, when you feel, that's the reason I threw it out. I wanted to go ahead and, I didn't really throw it out like we're gonna do anything now. I understand. I threw it out there as an option that we have, that you guys have, because I won't be here to talk. And so I wanted you to understand that how much money we could get from it, that we could get this all done at one time, so you don't know really what you're gonna be facing next year. We don't know what the legislator is gonna give us for our budget. So I basically just, sometimes you throw something out there just and let everybody know. So in the future, you can, I don't really know actually whether the county commission has the power to really stop us from putting anything on the ballot. I don't really understand. I think we could probably go we could challenge that, but this is not the time. I agree with that. But remember, you guys have, you have primary elections, you have the August or 1st of September elections, and you have the general that you can put referendums on. So in the future, just so you know that, because this is something out there, if you get cash strapped, this is something you can do. And it can only be spent on capital dollars. It cannot be spent on salaries or anything else. But it could harden all of these schools all at once. So if we start having threats and we start having issues and you start feeling like, I wouldn't want to be sitting on this board when someone says, well, why did you harden Forest High School but you didn't harden North Marion? I wouldn't want to be sitting in your seats if that question comes up. So I'm giving you a way to take care of it all at one time when the time is right. Okay?
So also, there was, I think, Ms. Stacy, you asked for some numbers or something, right? So I guess you might want to stop that. So that way that people
Numbers for
aren't.
what?
Remember you were asking, weren't, you requested something at the last
No,
work
just about
session?
what kind of revenue it would
How
be.
much revenue would
Right.
be generated?
Oh, and how
So-
much, what kind of a construction needs we have?
This-
Right-
right, so
Right
I'm-
now, and probably Mr. Knight knows that without doing a whole lot of stuff. I mean,
Okay,
I'm
I
sure,
just
I
don't want
feel
him to
like
work and-
probably our security people know. So, I wanted to get a little buzz started. I knew it would get the, I know it would blow air up the skirt of the county commission, but that's okay, because I'm not really all about doing what's good for the county commission. I'm more concerned about safety of our children in our schools. So, county commissioners are all my friends, but I have a job to do here. And I felt like it was important to throw this out there, so you guys know, in my absence, you have this option.
Thank you, Ms. Stacy, and thank you, Ms. McCall, Ms. King. If there was something going forward, I do think we need to still have that information available, but we don't need to be putting any extra effort in trying to get that right now.
Things starts in steps. We got to do steps.
Yeah, in the future, we do know that there's going to be some things coming down the pike, some unfunded mandates. We're going to have to seriously look at this, but right now, just probably not the
I
time.
needed to float that balloon to get it out there, so you know you have your options.
Thank you, Ms. Stacy. Ms. King?
Oh, my concern. I did have there are some concerns still. I guess parents want to know about the hiring of the third JROTC for the Lake Weir High, where the process, has there been any information or updates on that, Dr. Mayer?
I haven't asked, but I can ask today.
Okay, because the community is, that's out there and they're wondering, so, I felt that would probably, maybe if we could find out, it would help communicate with them rather than them thinking we're at a standstill. Thank you, that's it.
And to piggyback on that, I have had discussions with Mr. Vianello and Dr. Mayer. Matter of fact, we're going to talk tomorrow about an alternative that we can possibly have in place for the upcoming school year that may help resolve a lot of these issues. There's also been some discussion with Mr. McCallum as well. Is possibly doing some consultant work. I don't think he really wants to be as a principal or anything like that, but possibly doing some consultant work to help get this ship righted, so.
And Mr. Vianello, I believe, made contact with each of us. I know he made a contact
Yes.
with me, and I was very favorable in moving forward with
Yes.
the idea that Dr. Mayer and he and Mr. McAteer have
And it
talked about.
It does sound like a great idea. In fact, when I spoke with Dr. Grantham in December, that was exactly what I asked for, a school within a school. That was exactly what I asked for. So I'm very appreciative that it's moving forward.
That, you asked for what, I'm sorry?
A school within a school.
So we're gonna get together to try to work out some of the logistics parts of those things, because we have to still understand that even though there will be a military type academy, they still are subject to the rules and disciplines of Marion County School District. We can't have separate sets of rules. So, but thank you. Ms. Thor?
Just to piggyback on this conversation, we'll never stop supporting kids and trying to figure out the best way to meet their needs, and keeping in mind that the majority of the students that attended MMA were there because either they or their parents or both felt like their needs were not being met with the options that they had at that time. So it's going to continue to be very important to make sure that we're mindful of the student profiles. And I have always supported the military option. I'll continue to do that. But I don't want this to become like an elite program in the sense that students that might need it the most don't end up getting access to it. So I have conveyed that already to Mr. Vianello, and that's why we have these choice programs, so that we can meet the needs of all students. So I just wanted to make sure that the community knows that this is my perspective and my mission, and kids will generally always rise up to higher expectations, given the appropriate support. So I'm excited for what's to come. Sometimes something has to burn down and then you rebuild it and it's bigger, better, stronger. So
And
I'm optimistic.
I would like to dovetail off of that. I think when I leave the school board, my spirit is in you, because I was thinking the same thing. I don't want the kids who, this was a niche that it filled for them, to lose the niche. And so, thank you, Nancy, for bringing that up, because it's a very real concern of mine also, that I would like to voice right now along with her. So if she was making a motion, I would second it. So, strong support that the children that need the niche of the additional discipline and the structure and everything, that that we have that it doesn't become a special elite program like you suggested, like IB or something where it's hard to get in. I would like to keep it right where we have it. That is the niche that we need to fill. Thank you, Ms. Thrower, so much for bringing that up.
I think all of us probably echo those same sentiments as well. We don't want to leave any kids behind in this process, especially if there's a formula that's working for kids. We want to make sure that it's accessible to all the kids. So, I don't have any comments right now. As you could tell, I'm probably trying to nurse my voice because I have a long weekend this weekend coming up, so.
Hanging out with sheep.
He's got to take his Allegra, what is it you take, the medicine, the allergy medicine?
It's something.
Having some Claret in there?
Something. So, with there being no other concerns, I'm going to adjourn this meeting right now. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Thrower, seconded by Ms. Stacy. All in favor that we adjourn at 9:52, signify by aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned at 9:52.